Hello to the U.S., all of you in my US 102 CCAP late start classes. And I want to wish you Merry Happy Easter for those who do Easter. For my Jewish students, there's the Pesach, there's the Passover, and some of the Jehovah's Witness students also had their memorial service. So this week has been important to many of you here, in regards to yeah, these holidays that all kind of revolve around the same sort of topics, but not necessarily always the same. Okay, and maybe some of you don't do these at all. All right. In any case, I hope you all are doing well. We're getting close to the end of the semester, and so I'm going to be trying to help teach you all the information, get you more informed about the topics that we're covering, and I'm also trying to help you keep informed about like thinking about your academic standing and where to go and what you need to do. So I imagine that some of the students that are really behind on their work may also be the students that are not watching these announcement videos. So if you have friends in the class, are struggling and they're not keeping up, maybe you can help talk to your fellow student to try to remind them to look at the announcements as they're required to do, and to take in this information I'm about to say. So before I do the summary, I want to just talk about late work. I've been very generous on late work. I have a strict policy that I mentioned in the syllabus that I did not stick to for all of you, which is that after 8 hours of being late, up until then, you can turn in late work. You have an 8-hour grace period. You can just turn in the late work. You don't have to ask for permission. After 8 hours, you have to ask permission in order to get any credit for it. I am now very strictly sticking to this, for the main reason that I have every semester a student who's really behind and they think that they can send me 50 assignments on the last week or two of class. It's not happening. If you're a student who thinks that, you've misinformed yourself. You never communicated with me. You don't get to send in half the semester to make up for it, and I'm expected to grade this before the final. So if you had this in your mind that you were going to do this massive assignment dump, and now you know that's not going to happen. And by the way, for everyone, I'm telling you, if you send me the work without permission, I'm not grading it. It's getting a 0. Everybody understand this. And I'm going to try my best. I am working quite a bit. For those of you asking, I'm going to try my best to give you a response as soon as possible, to give you the green light or not. Now, feel free. You can write me several messages if you really feel panicked. I don't take that personally. The squeaky wheel gets fixed, so to speak. Okay, but late work is not supposed to be happening. Many professors do not actually tolerate late work. I'm not like giving you a lecture on this stuff. I just want to also help you prepare you that when you're going to college, think of late work as showing up to work late. How many bosses tolerate chronic lateness to work? They don't. So you got to think about that. Now, some of you have events that you've had to go to and you're involved in sports and other academic stuff, and you've communicated with me on that. That's also a different story too. Some of you also had just real personal life stuff, but you've been communicating with me. So I'm not talking about, folk. There's a lot of you who've been doing what you need to do. You communicate with your professor. I'm mainly addressing right now anybody who's got this like last minute notion that they're going to be a student all of a sudden again, and that they've been slacking. So you need to contact me immediately. And we're going to need to set up a phone conversation or a Zoom office hour to have a discussion if you really see that you're far behind, and you're going to need to catch up, and like we'll see what I can do. I'm open to have a discussion. It depends on how far behind you are. It depends on what it takes. I just have to have this conversation with you, and you're going to have to explain yourself. We're going to have to that's where we're going to have to go. And please, again, do that soon. I want you all to succeed. I don't want anybody to fail. I'm not going to lecture you like some grumpy, you know, fatherly figure. I just want to, like, I have my own limited time as well. Okay. So just keep that in mind. All right. So, um, what did we what I just want to take away from the summary? Well, actually, first of all, I want to say I've been putting these, like, my own thoughts at the end of these videos, which is what I originally intended to do for all of them before. Please watch from the beginning to the end. It's not that, like, my thoughts are the most important, but it's my chance to kind of help you all see what I'm seeing as an instructor, and to draw attention to parts of what we studied in the way that I'd want you to think about in terms of US history and how it's and why it's relevant. And again, you never have to agree with my perspective. You can also go down, you're going to keep hearing me say this. I want you to go on a rabbit hole. I want you to go down and dive deep into certain topics that maybe I briefly mentioned, and you hear me say something that seems like, what is he talking? What? Go down that rabbit hole and research the topic, and see what you come up with. I love it when a student does that. Okay. So mainly what I just wanted to say, there were several things, and I just wanted to kind of cover again something that I just think is so important. We did this last week of really the Gorbachev and the fall of the Soviet Union. This is huge, huge. Remember, I've been talking about how the Cold War has been so influential, right? And that it really was linked to so much of U.S. foreign policy. And the Soviet Union, uh, um, many did not see it coming that it would fall. One of my sayings that I keep saying, and this goes for even, like, especially what's going on right now with Iran in this current war. People always say, oh, history, it repeats itself. And I always say, yeah, by surprising us. I really don't think there were that many people who thought the Soviet Union was going to fall. And why it fell is on it. Now it's don't go for this oversimplified thing just to say, well, communism doesn't work. Look, China has the largest communist party in the world, and the Communist Party has led China to becoming a world superpower. Now, if you are an educated person on China's rise to power, you could say, well, they opened up to capitalism and that's why they succeeded. Um, but the Soviet Union, as they tried to open up and reform perestroika, the whole thing fell apart. Gorbachev didn't want the Soviet Union to fall apart. He wanted to reform it. China reformed itself, and it became more powerful. So just to simply say, it was just because they were, communist. It's an oversimplification. It's an interesting topic. I'm not going to actually have time or the ability to fully go into this, but I want you to look more further into that and think about it. And even, like, but for China and many, they would say the real problem was glasnost. Allowing more freedom of opinions to come in is what made the whole country fall apart. I mean, after all, are we a unified country? Does the internet make us a stronger country? That's kind of like what China would say. That's what Singapore, the influence on a lot of China's transition into operating with the capitalist system as a socialist officially state. Singapore was always anti-socialist and anti-communist, but it had this idea of a strong state with capitalism, which is some things that China learned from Singapore. And so, it's what one economist called Disneyland with the death penalty, referring to Singapore. So Russia, tried to go this. I mean, Gorbachev wanted to make the Soviet Union look more like Sweden and a kind of social democratic state. And by the way, I saw Gorbachev speak at Modesto Junior College years ago. He came and he said that he regrets. He thinks it's a tragedy that the Soviet Union fell, which I thought was really interesting. Um, because many blame him, say that he is the reason why it fell, that it was his combination of economic reform with free speech and the way that he did it, it led to the whole thing to fall apart. So again, that's a whole nother topic. But the important part that I wanted you to take away from is that was a very huge thing, and that we had a very optimistic world after the fall of the Soviet Union, at least from the Western liberal capitalist perspective. But now we have one of the most cynical times. I don't see a lot of people having hope in almost anything. There's not an ism that's really seems believable. Democracy is the most vulnerable and the most. I'm talking about liberal capitalist democracy. It's a mess. Western Europe to the United States. It's so what, and we have a tiny 1%. The whole touting of capitalism is supposed to be upward mobility. Free markets mean free people. That's what we were told, but this is not what we're seeing. It's not factually. The gap between the rich and the poor is becoming greater, and this is all what's kind of being like coming out of this time period now. So I'll just what I'm trying to say is I want you to look at this history, though. I mean, and maybe you disagree with that. Maybe you think I'm wrong. Maybe what I just said. Well, take a look at this history that we covered. Think about the summary of that. Think about where we're going, and think about the fact that the world is like where we're at now compared to what we're seeing, the history that you've just covered. So, okay. So having said that, again, please look carefully as you watch the next videos, and then watch my summary and my analysis of the information we learned from the beginning to the end, as you're supposed to, carefully. I want 4 notes this time on my video at the end, video 11. So that's it. So have a great week, and we'll be in touch.